Hello, today I'm joined by my guest James Townsend Rose from Outsourcery. How you doing, James?
I'm well, David. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Really well. It's sort of timely that we're speaking because I have spent a great deal of time traveling up and down the country, training estate agents and speaking to them about the pressures on their businesses. And there is one
Mm,
thing that comes up. It doesn't matter whether you're a big business, a small business, or somewhere in between. One of the major pressures that always seems to be ever present at the moment is, in effect, employment and talent, I suppose, and
yeah,
in terms of getting the right people in the right places. It's a funny market. There are pressures in terms of time in our businesses. I'm surprised, James, at how many businesses see this as a kind of a surprise. So they don't necessarily see it coming. It's very reactive. They just sort of kind of
yeah,
have, I need to employ somebody in David's role today.
yeah,
And so it's a fa and because of that, it's a fast changing market. Um,
yeah.
but let's face it, the clients aren't going to wait for us to catch up. So it's good to have something in place. And I know you guys have been looking at this and been helping UK businesses to achieve this for a while now. So I'm going to
Mm,
hand over to you because I think you can break it down into sort of four particular pressure points that are making this so tense at the moment. So James,
yeah,
what's your
yeah,
your take on it?
yeah. I think firstly, just as you said, just to kind of set the context, it's a really challenging time at the moment to be any small business leader, owner, hiring lead, and be building teams. And we can see the impact on the bottom line on teams. We can see the increase in risk in terms of liability around employing staff members. We can see the time it's taking for to hire someone into a role. I think the average is now about 48 days on average to fill a role. Um, and we see that coming out in the stats around how many business owners have been dissatisfied around recent hires. Around 1 in 3 in a recent survey admitted to having made significant hiring mistakes in the last 6 months. Um, we see those mistakes kind of coming in, all those pressure points coming into four different areas. So the first one is around time. And that's just the amount of time and effort it takes to find the right person to build your team. As you mentioned, often it's a rather last minute thought. It's responding to an emergency or perhaps someone resigns and you need to fill the gap as soon as possible. And as I mentioned, it takes over a month to find those roles. It's a funny one actually, because on the other side of taking a long time, you've got a whole load and a whole generation of younger people coming through into the workforce who are desperate to find the work. Certainly, that's what we're being told, but not necessarily wanting to do some of the more junior roles in an agency. And so there
Yeah.
seems to be a mismatch in like the gaps and the demands of the workforce at the moment as well. So there's a real time issue there. The next one we see is quality coming through. So just finding the right person for the role, especially if you are restricted to a kind of geolocation, within say 30 minutes commutable distance of the office, actually restricts you to quite a small pool of potential staff members or talent. And then obviously the last one is you spend all that time, you find the right person, and they give you what they're asking for, and it's out of your budget.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing that can happen. That's the cost of employment is obviously increasing all the time with national insurance
Yeah.
contributions going up, etc. And then once we've made that decision, we found the right person. As business owners, we are carrying then a lot of risk. As we know, about 50% of hires fail within the first 2 years. And that's a huge risk on a business. It costs an enormous amount of money to go through that cycle again. And all that risk sits with the hiring lead or the business owner. Um, and that's the kind of marketplace that we are playing in as a business. Those are some of the challenges we're trying to solve.
So in your experience as you sort of dealing with business owners, which when they come to you and say, James, help us, which one of these sort of factors is creeping up on them the most? Which one is the one that tends to sort of catch them off guard?
It does vary from kind of business type to business type. My sense is specifically for agencies, we're seeing like time being a big factor. It's the kind of prep and the planning that is potentially not being done to get ahead of the recruitment cycle or the demands of the growing business. And often it's fighting fires. So the business owners always feel like they're slightly on the back foot, either tasks getting piled up and not getting done, potential sales not getting made because the clients aren't getting back to, or roles just sitting empty in businesses for too long while we scrabble around trying to fill them on these platforms. It's a that's what I see mostly.
And so, I mean, look, it makes perfect sense to say, and it's easy for us to say, look, don't be reactive, be proactive.
Mm.
But in effect, when we've got all the positions filled and we're busy sort of operating our businesses, our mind is not on employment matters. We don't sit there and
Yeah,
sort of sweat about it all the time.
yeah,
So what does, in your opinion, sort of good, proactive, um, decision making, but preparation really to
yeah.
for this scenario look like?
Yeah. I think it's more about then having the right system that supports that because obviously we can't project into the future and guess when someone's going to move on or when life happens and gets in the way. That's impossible. So I guess what I would say to a business owner is like, what system have you got in place that allows you to at least respond quickly to any changes happening? Now, for a bigger business with a full-time HR team, they are building pipeline all the time. Their talent team are always reaching out into the market and will have people ready to go. Now, that's not realistic for a small business. But the default setting for a small business of let's wait for a gap and then we'll post it online and we'll wait 42 days and then have a 50-50 chance of success. Like that is also crazy. That's a ridiculous way to do it, but it is the norm. So, of course, this is where I then advocate my business because when you get a partner like us, we're essentially your partner, your hiring partner, your employment partner. And we can help you respond incredibly quickly to those gaps and solve some of the other problems as well. So you don't have to have those long wait times. We're building your pipeline for you, and we're doing all the legwork in the back end as a recruiter would to make sure that when that gap is created, there's someone who is the right talent, the right price, et cetera, the right skills who can fill that gap in your team.
I guess the one of the truest things I always hear, and it's a bit of a stupid thing, but you don't know what you don't know. Until you have this problem, you don't. So most people just sort of are blinkered, aren't they? They think, well, if I had this problem, it's not going to be an issue because I've not had to hire recently, so I don't know what the market's like.
Mm.
Talking to recruiters then and sort of going into that process and then sitting in the interviews and sort of seeing people that might not be suitable for the roles, and there's a multitude of reasons why that is happening more often than not. I guess the message must be to people, look, don't just assume because it hasn't happened to you yet, you're going to be able to just breeze it when the time comes. It's a little bit like people buying houses. We try to sort of educate them what the cycle is now and how, where we're up to with things because things do change. So don't just assume it's going to be like how it was 10 years ago. You
Yeah,
need to look
yeah,
at it today. I guess
yeah,
you're a firm
yeah.
believer in that as well.
Yeah, I think, as you said, it's something that doesn't necessarily happen that often, especially for a smaller team. So, there's a sense that, that bit's under control. So let's rather focus on perhaps revenue generating activities. We just got to focus on the sales and lettings and get that done. And then the kind of the preparation around filling those roles kind of falls away. I actually did a bit of research this morning. I looked at one of the job sites this morning. There's 4,500 property managers, open roles today across the UK.
Yeah.
And those are all businesses who have a hole in their business, properties that are not being managed properly today because they can't fill their spots.
Yeah.
So I think we all think it's not going to happen to me, perhaps, but it's happening to a lot of
Yeah, no,
people
look,
right
and,
now.
and
Yeah,
and property management is probably one of the areas of our agency world at the moment that is under the most pressure because you've got a lot
100%.
of legislative change. So I mean, we're talking about staff that have been in roles for years. Experienced property managers have suddenly kind of woken up in a new world, a new country, and sort of think, well, this isn't what it used to be, and therefore they are looking at new challenges and so on. There's a
Yeah,
myriad of reason why. you're able to
Mm.
go on that site today and just pick out sort of 4,500 empty seats.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the reasons are not just because these businesses haven't thought ahead, it's everything else that's kind of going on in the
yeah,
ecosystem, I presume.
yeah, yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Something's got to give, and obviously you've hinted at what you guys do, and I'd love you to sort of really kind of talk to us and almost treat me as if I was a business owner today that has buried
Yeah,
my head in the sand, and then so I don't know what's going to happen. There must be at some point some sort of a trade-off with these sort of pressures, and I need to sort of, am I hiring quickly, and therefore am I? And I've seen this happen, by the way, people who said, look, I'm just under pressure. I need these phones answering. I need this doing. I need that,
mm,
these properties managing. And so therefore they are offering jobs to people that they don't necessarily really with a whole heart feel fit
yeah,
the role entirely.
100%.
So those are trade-offs that people are making. Sometimes we're making trade-offs on money. We're overpaying for a role because we need to fill it today.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's speed. So if you can start the job this week, but somebody else who's more suitable can't do it for another 3 weeks, well, James, welcome to the club. So do you see
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying? I think there's a number of
100%.
different factors here. Um,
Yeah.
tell me about how you help me with this, really.
How we solve that? Yeah, okay. Well, as you mentioned, I run a company called Outsourcery, and for the last 11 years, we've been helping small businesses build teams based in South Africa. I'm actually speaking to you from Cape Town now. I'm a Brit, but I've lived here for 15 years. I've got a team here of about 150 who sit on on my company's books in South Africa, but work day to day for businesses all over the UK and an awful lot of agencies and property businesses. So we work in a couple of ways. First of all, we're a recruiter. So if you're an agency and you're looking for, let's call it property manager as an example, because we know there's 4,500 open positions right now. So say, for example, you're looking for a property manager. We know that your property manager spends 99% of their time in the office, and the 1% of the time they're not in the office could be done by someone else. So our argument is that that could be done from a different country, and the argument is shown to be true. So we take that job description for that property manager, and we go and find a property manager in South Africa who has experience in the UK, who meets all the requirements of the job description that you give us. And if once you're happy with them and you interview them as if you were interviewing a full-time employee that was going to sit in your team, you can put them through tests, multiple interview rounds, etc. We facilitate as if we were a recruiter. Once you're happy with them, we then employ them on our books in South Africa, but they're working day to day with you.
And
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
no, it's interesting because I'm remembering a chat that we once had, and I quizzed you on this previously. I'm a bit of a strong believer in training, and I sort of said to you, well, look, these guys might be able to do the job, but do they have the training? And so you only work with people that have the sort of requisite sort of skill, not only just skill set, but
yeah,
they know what they're doing. So it's not me having to educate somebody on the other
no,
side of the world as to what UK lettings legislation looks like. Out of the
yeah,
box, these guys are coming
yeah.
to the table with the skills, right?
100%. It's actually quite a mature industry. It's surprising how many South Africans or for people living in South Africa have experience in the UK property sector, property management, as the example that we're using now. Either have worked in the UK or have been living in or work in South Africa for UK property managers remotely at scale. There's a couple of property management companies in the UK who have teams of over 50, 60, 70 property managers in the
Yeah.
UK. Like they've chosen that as a strategic decision and built teams here. So we leverage off some of that training, some of that experience here. I think the crux of it is that, like any recruiter, which we are the sort of the first part of our relationship, we will only find the person that you need. We don't just give you someone. This is about you choosing the right person for the role. So they have to meet your training requirements. They have to have the right experience. They have to have used the software tools that you use. They have to have the cultural fit that will fit into your team, as if you were using a recruiter to fill a full-time role. It just so happens that after that, we go then and hire them as on our books. That's almost
Well,
like a separate
I love
structure.
that because it's all the reward and all the risk sits with you, my friend, in terms of
100%.
direct employment. So it's got all the benefits of almost having somebody in-house, but all the again all the benefits of it being an outsourced service as well.
Yeah, that's it. And we go back to those kind of four problems that we see, and we see us having, significant impact on all of those because I've got a full-time recruitment team working 24/7 on finding talent. The pipeline's always got good people on the busy roles. Again, I'm using property management as an example. We've got a lot of demand for property managers. So the speed, it's quicker because of that talent depth in South Africa. The quality is always high. And as I said, you're only ever going to make a decision as an owner to hire, so it's meeting your quality bar. And then we see arbitrage on salaries somewhere between 30 and 40% between the UK and South Africa. So
Yeah,
significant impact to bottom line. If you're looking at, say, a £40,000 a year cost to company property manager, once you factored in desk, computer, training, Christmas lunch, reduce that by 30%, and that's straight to the bottom line for a business in the UK, which is, it's a significant saving, or certainly a significant amount of additional revenue that you would need to make to cover that cost.
and it's funny because in all senses you are on the other side of the world to me right now, but you have a very convenient time zone, don't you, for the UK? There's virtually no difference whatsoever, and we're divided by a common language, so that's also a good thing, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, I think we're plus 1 or 2 hours,
Yeah,
and there's so much. I mean, the reason why this works so well is because of that sort of common culture. It's almost deeper than the common language. There's a lot of shared history between the UK and South
sure,
Africa. I'm
sure.
sure many of the people watching this will have traveled or will know someone in the UK who's South African because there's about 250 South Africans who live in the UK. Perhaps have traveled down here, and you'll know it's a fantastic country full of very hardworking, enthusiastic people who are keen to give their best, are confident, direct communicators. Essentially, a South Africa makes an incredibly good team member. Who doesn't want to see a Khaleesi on their team?
Yeah, you know what? They're disproportionately good at rugby and cricket as well. So, that's a very, very English thing as well. So, look, James, uh, I'm a big fan of this, and it's been my sort of pleasure to be able to recommend these sort of services to
Hmm,
UK agents in the past. I think it does give them a degree of flexibility, but under pressure as well, time pressures and so on. And we know that it's working because you guys have been doing this for a long time, and there are lots and
hmm,
lots of people that can attest to this being really sort of good value for money, but also good fit within their teams. And I think some of the feedback that we've had in the past is that they don't see this outsourced person as not a member of the team. It is
100%.
almost like, they are absolutely a fully fledged member of the team, which is great because they sort of imbibe that company culture and the values of the business and so on. So that's superb. But I'm also aware that it's not one size fits all. And not everybody sort of has the same requirements. So as I understand it, you operate two models. I think it's flex and direct.
That's
Can you
right.
just take us through the process and how that works and what the options are?
Yeah. They're just slightly different ways of fulfilling a task or staffing requirement. So we understand that potentially some smaller businesses don't have the requirement for a full-time role. So you might want a more fractional type, perhaps it's just some tasks, or you want someone to fulfill a specific piece of a type of project. So this is 20, 40, 80 hours a month. And there's a bit more flexibility around that in terms of kind of notice periods and set up time. We can really respond very quickly to fulfilling those roles. So that's the flex model, really geared towards smaller teams who want flexibility. And then on the direct model, these are full-time roles only. We can then really going out into the market to find exactly the right type of talent for you to fulfill that long-term role. Our ambition with a direct role is that this person is going to be with you for 15 years. We want them to be getting the gold watch from the company and have a real sense of that company's culture and live with them. And we've seen that over the last 11 years that once we place a person in direct, they stay in that company for a long time. So it's a slightly longer recruitment process, and fully embedded full time role on that direct model.
So given that the stats are so stark, if you like, the fact that 1 in 3 UK businesses will admit to have made a sort of a wrong or a bad hiring
Mm,
decision under pressure to fill a role so quickly. The proof of the pudding, and we mentioned this, that you've got many good reviews out there. It is genuinely hard, I think, as a any kind of business these days to maintain a near perfect Google review rating, but you've been working now with over 2,000 UK businesses. You're maintaining that kind of 4.9 Google rating, which is absolutely anyone will know that's effectively 5 stars. That's absolutely superb. What do you hear then from business owners? On an ongoing basis, do they check in with you from time to time and sort of say, they and who do they give that feedback to? So if I'm sitting down for a sort of a 3 monthly review, a 6 monthly review with one on a one-to-one basis with one of my employees, do I effectively also then sit down with you and say, "Hey James, just want to let you know how that's going," and if so, what kind of feedback are you getting direct from those business owners?
Yeah, we do support the engagement. So once we place a staff member, we are as a company, we are here to support, whether it be good, bad performance, feedback, any type of support we can give to help the engagement. It is always better for our client to give that feedback directly to the
Yeah,
staff member.
sure.
And sometimes we find by making ourselves too available, we become a bit of a third wheel in the party, and clients or staff maybe use us as an easy way out to
Yeah.
tell us to tell my friend. It's like you guys should really be talking. Uh, but so yes, we're here, but really we have embedded staff members in teams, and part of that is having a direct communication between the staff member and the teams. What we do hear from in terms of the feedback, and
Yeah.
thanks for mentioning the 4.9 stars, that's kind. And we do work really hard
I,
to
I,
do that.
I've got to tell you, the reason that resonates with me is as a small business owner at some point in my life as well. I understand how difficult it is to do that, and also in a lettings and management businesses, for instance, James, always used
Yes,
to have very bad reviews that were left by tenants who were disgruntled. I
yes,
also know that it's hard when it comes to staff to get them to leave, and sort of when they leave, they're always over the moon. So for a business of your kind to get a sort of a rating of 4.9, to me sort
yeah,
of indicates that it's above and beyond the norm,
yeah,
because I would imagine a
yeah.
lot of recruiters do not have that kind of feedback.
I think I'm going to put that all down to two things. So one is the quality of the recruitment team and the talent in South Africa. It is genuinely great, and our clients are repeatedly surprised and delighted by the quality for the cost.
Yeah.
So we're just built in great value. Sometimes when you get the bill at the end of the meal, and you're like, oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That feeling comes up through a lot. So there's a good foundation stone. And the second one is the extent to which we encourage our clients not to see us as a service provision. So you don't just throw us the need and we throw you back talent. It's your choice. We're going to do all the work in the background to present you with the profiles, but you've got to buy into the interviewing and the decision making to decide that this is your person. And once the client has bought into that, then good things happen. Then they are giving the direct feedback, then they're investing in the cultural integration, and they're investing in the onboarding. And that drives a quality relationship. So great talent, my great recruitment team, and making sure the client is fully invested in the talent and building them as like an internal member of the team.
It's really interesting this because it does take kind of a mindset shift really as well for people to sort of see this for what it is. Don't let the name almost mislead you because outsourcery is a great name by the way. But it doesn't mean that you're just an outsourcing provider. This isn't a
Yeah.
standard VA service.
No,
And it's
no.
not necessarily a low cost and low value shortcut that you can just throw away later on. This is a
No.
dedicated hire. This is an actual
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
contemplated scenario.
It's a strategic way to build a team. If you come to us because you're running out of money and this is firefighting, it can end in tears. Yeah. This is remote work is a thing. There's long-term pressures in the industry. The cost and the friction around hiring is getting harder. So let's think differently about building teams. That's where we fit in. And interesting, you talked about the name because it is a little bit disingenuous that call ourselves outsourcery, and it's more about team building. We have been discussing that recently. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's very memorable. And I've got to say, from all our interactions, everybody's been really helpful, pleasant, and we've dealt
Great.
with members of your team who are, yeah, just really sort of nice and friendly and easy to deal with. And
Good.
I think the recruitment space is I don't want to say it's I don't want to give it the same sort of stereotype that sometimes we get as estate agents, but it's a
Mm,
hard business. It's fast. It can be often very sort of cutthroat in terms of
mm.
people trying to nab applicants. And I have, in a previous life, sat down and interviewed people and salary expectations. And that's actually quite a thing. People will interview
Mm,
for jobs that are not even within their salary expectation range,
mm,
and then
mm.
still they'll get to the end of the process and go, yeah, but I want an extra 10,000. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's quite disconcerting when you get to that point because by that point you kind of invested in the
You're
person.
in. You're
You're
in.
almost there, and they lead you all the way to that door, and then bang, and that's a lot of money because in the UK, as you know, if I offer you an extra 10,000 on your salary, it's not just that I'm paying. I've got all my
100%.
national
Yeah.
insurance costs on top
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
a lot of people forget that in the moment, don't they?
They do. And of course, when you've got so much sunk cost at that moment, your natural reaction is to go back to the finance team or look back into your budget and say, can I afford it? Because you just want to get this done.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's the reality.
That's
Yeah.
it because it
Um,
does, and the time that it takes to hire somebody, I think you quoted it earlier. I think the average was something like 42 days.
that's right. Yeah.
Now, 42 days, that's 42 days that you're actually working on it. That doesn't include your weekends, let me tell you. It
Mm,
takes time, and it can be
mm.
hard, and it can also be soul destroying, that
Yeah.
going into sort of interview after interview of people that perhaps are applying for jobs where they're not
Mm.
quite suited for it. I think we live in the day and age of ChatGPT where I can turn around and go, look, this is my CV, but make it
Yeah.
sparkle.
Yes.
And
Yes.
therefore we're seeing a lot of people that on
Yeah.
paper look amazing and in reality don't stand up to the task. But you do all of that for me, right?
Yeah, just like a recruiter, we do all the pre-vetting ourselves. My team is constantly building pipelines with great talent. So we have a sort of pool of people who we're constantly engaged with. And then we do all the pre-vetting, so online testing, pre-interviews. So by the time it's got to our clients, they're getting essentially three or four pre-qualified profiles, including a short video interview. So you're getting a lot more than just a CV. You're
Yeah.
getting a video interview that we do as well. Yeah, there's a lot of work that's being done behind in the background there. We're taking that 42 days and we're bringing it down to closer to 18 for the direct role. Which is and for the flex role even faster. Yeah.
Well, look, it's a skill set in itself. I'm particularly good at dealing with the sale and letting of properties. Hiring people ain't my skill set necessarily, and I'm quite.
Funny enough, Dave, it's not mine either, which is an interesting one to be in this business. But I have great
But
people who are good at
but it's
it.
funny. But it's funny. It's like, it's almost like, well, just because you're a business owner, that is that going to make you good at employment? And the answer to that
Yeah,
overwhelmingly
absolutely,
is
absolutely
not.
not.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely not. The stat is, I think 50% of hires are deemed to be successful. So
yeah,
you are just as likely to make a good decision if you toss a coin after an interview as if you
yeah.
made a decision. We are inherently very bad at judging people, and the interview process, as we know, is a very fake environment. Um,
Oh,
Very
absolutely.
hard to navigate. So we help you with all of that. We
It's a
help you.
first, it's the ideal first date scenario, right? We all
Yeah.
try and sort of do our best
Suit and
on the
tie.
first date and
Yeah.
then let it all slide. James, it's been an
Excellent.
absolute pleasure talking to you again. Thank you
And
for
you,
everything that
David.
you're doing for those businesses here. James, for anybody that's watching this, listening to this, and they sort of think, you know what? I'd like to have this in place because,
Yeah.
we never know when we're going to need it. Or even for people who might have current vacancies at the moment, what's the best way for them and you to sort of get together? Do you sort of have a Zoom call with them and learn more about the business? Because I'm presuming you need to understand the culture of the business to match them to the right sort of candidate, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So it all kicks off with a discovery call. It's normally about 30 minutes long. There's a little bit about understanding or Q&A around the model, and then we really deep dive the business and the client's requirements, the role, etc. Decide whether to go flex or direct, and then go from there. Talk about next steps. So if you go on our website, outsourcery.uk, there's a Calendly booking link there. You can book some time, and then you'll be swept up in a river of efficiency as you go through the process. And hopefully within 18 days, you've got your role filled with a fantastic South African. But it all starts with that call.
I'll take that. Right, James, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. All the best.
Thank you.